A strange thing happened in a remote mountain village that almost nobody believes, until they experience it for themselves. People say there was once an old spiritual guide who never made predictions for money. He never chased fame. He never tried to impress anyone. Instead, he quietly observed people, looked into their eyes, remained silent for several minutes, and then spoke only one sentence. Some people laughed. Some people cried. Some people walked away in complete disbelief. But there was one type of person that always made him unusually quiet. Whenever he sensed that two souls were connected by destiny yet separated by fear, he would close his eyes and whisper. One heart is ready to run toward love, while the other is standing at the edge of the biggest decision of their entire life. If this message somehow found you today, many believe it is not an accident. Because someone connected to your destiny is standing exactly at that edge. Your soulmate is facing a decision so powerful, that it could completely change both of your futures forever. The frightening part is, you probably don't even realize they're struggling. To the outside world they may appear normal. They may laugh. They may post pictures. They may continue living their daily routine. But inside, a battle has already begun. A battle between fear and destiny. Between comfort and transformation. Between walking away or walking toward you. And tonight, we're going to uncover why. Stay until the end, because the final revelation has shocked countless listeners. Many say it explained years of silence in a way they never imagined. Let's begin. Every destined connection begins long before two people ever meet. Some traditions believe that souls agree to certain lessons before entering this world. Not every meeting becomes love. Not every attraction becomes destiny. But when two souls carry unfinished lessons for one another, life keeps pulling them back together in unexpected ways. Coincidences become impossible to ignore. The same names appear repeatedly. Dreams become strangely vivid. Random memories refuse to disappear. You suddenly think about someone at the exact moment they think about you. No logical explanation seems strong enough. And yet, something continues pulling the invisible thread tighter. That invisible thread is exactly what your soulmate has been feeling. The problem isn't whether they feel the connection. The problem is what accepting that connection would require them to sacrifice. Most people believe love is difficult because of distance. Or timing. Or family. Or circumstances. Those things matter. But the greatest obstacle is almost always fear. Fear disguises itself very cleverly. Sometimes it calls itself logic. Sometimes it calls itself responsibility. Sometimes it even calls itself maturity. But underneath every excuse, there is one silent question. What if I risk everything, and still lose? That question has become louder inside your soulmate than ever before. Every day they try convincing themselves not to think about you. Yet somehow, your memory keeps returning. Not because they're weak, but because some connections refuse to disappear through force. Have you noticed something strange recently? Perhaps someone from your past suddenly crossed your mind. Perhaps you've been feeling emotional without understanding why. Perhaps you've sensed invisible pressure. As if something important is approaching. Many people dismiss these feelings. But sometimes, Your heart notices changes before your mind understands them. While you've been questioning yourself, someone else has secretly been questioning their entire future. Imagine standing before two doors. Behind the first door lies safety, predictability, no emotional risks, no uncertainty. Life continues exactly as expected. Behind the second door, nothing is guaranteed. Love, transformation, growth, possible heartbreak, possible happiness beyond imagination. Most people think choosing the first door is easier. But there's a hidden price. Regret. And regret grows heavier with every passing year. Your soulmate knows this. Deep down, they already know which door they truly want. The problem is, walking through it changes everything. Sometimes people delay destiny because they believe waiting makes decisions easier. Ironically, waiting usually makes fear stronger. Every day without action creates another excuse. Another doubt. Another reason to remain still. Your soulmate has been trapped inside this cycle longer than they admit. One voice inside them whispers, "Go toward them." Another whispers, "What if you're too late?" Those voices never stop arguing. They follow them into work, into conversations, into lonely evenings, even into dreams. Speaking of dreams, have you ever awakened feeling like someone was trying to reach you? Unable to remember every detail, yet carrying emotions that felt completely real? Many spiritual traditions describe dreams as places where guarded hearts finally remove their masks. In dreams, fear weakens, truth becomes louder, and emotions hidden during daylight finally breathe. Some believe your soulmate has already spoken to you there. Not with words, but with feelings. An overwhelming sense of familiarity, comfort, longing, recognition. Then morning arrives. The dream fades, but the emotion remains. That emotion refuses to disappear because the decision they're avoiding refuses to disappear. Here's something fascinating. People often assume destiny creates perfect timing. But many ancient stories suggest something different. Destiny creates opportunities. Courage decides everything else. Your soulmate has been waiting for certainty. Life has been waiting for courage. These are not the same thing. No one ever receives absolute certainty before making the biggest decision of their life. The leap always comes first. Understanding comes later. That truth terrifies them. Because they don't simply fear rejection. They fear becoming vulnerable. Many strong people secretly carry invisible wounds. Old betrayals. Broken promises. Moments where trusting someone changed their life forever. Those experiences build invisible walls. Walls so convincing. Even the person who built them forgets they're imprisoned. Your soulmate has walls. Very high ones. People assume those walls protect them. Sometimes they do. But eventually, the walls begin keeping love out as effectively as pain. Then something unexpected happens. Someone arrives whose presence quietly shakes the entire structure. Not through force. Not through manipulation. Simply by existing. That person may be you. And that's exactly why their decision feels so enormous. Choosing you doesn't simply mean choosing a relationship. It means choosing to become someone different. Someone more open. More vulnerable. More honest. Transformation always feels dangerous before it feels beautiful. Butterflies must completely dissolve before growing wings. Seeds disappear beneath darkness before becoming forests. Even diamonds endure unimaginable pressure before revealing their brilliance. Growth has never looked beautiful in the middle. Your soulmate is currently living inside that uncomfortable middle. They don't know whether to keep protecting the old version of themselves, or become the person capable of receiving the future waiting ahead. That's why their energy feels inconsistent. Some days they move closer. Other days they disappear. Some days they almost reach out. Other days silence wins again. It isn't because they stopped caring. It's because internal battles rarely move in straight lines. Progress often looks messy. Imagine climbing a mountain during heavy fog. You cannot see the summit. You barely see the next step. Still, every step matters. Even when it feels invisible. That is exactly where your soulmate stands today. And perhaps, without realizing it, you've been climbing your own mountain too. Because destiny rarely transforms one person. It transforms both. One soul learns courage. The other learns patience. One learns honesty. The other learns trust. Both become stronger than they were before meeting. That's why this connection refuses to disappear. Its purpose reaches beyond romance. Its purpose is growth. Its purpose is awakening. Its purpose is helping two ordinary people become extraordinary through the lessons they teach each other. The biggest surprise, however, hasn't happened yet. Because the decision your soulmate is struggling with is approaching a moment where remaining silent may become harder than finally speaking. Silence has limits. Truth does not stay buried forever. There comes a day when pretending becomes more exhausting than honesty. Many people spend years fearing change, only to discover the real pain came from avoiding it. Perhaps your soulmate is beginning to understand that now. Perhaps the weight they've been carrying has become too heavy. Perhaps every sign they've ignored keeps returning because life refuses to let this lesson end unfinished. Whatever happens next, remember this. The greatest decisions are rarely made when fear disappears. They are made when hope finally becomes stronger than fear. And sometimes, that single invisible shift changes everything forever. The truth is, the biggest decision is rarely made in one dramatic moment. It is made through hundreds of silent moments that no one else ever sees. Every time your soulmate remembers a conversation with you. Every time they replay something you once said. Every time they wonder what your life looks like without them. Another small piece of that decision quietly shifts. Most people believe the heart changes overnight. It doesn't. The heart changes one memory at a time. One realization at a time. One lonely night at a time. That is exactly what has been happening. Your soulmate has started comparing every future they imagine with the future that includes you. At first, they tried to avoid those thoughts. Whenever your name appeared in their mind, they distracted themselves. They buried themselves in work. They stayed busy. They convinced themselves they were moving on. But something unexpected kept happening. No matter how full their schedule became. The quiet moments always belonged to you. Late at night. During long drives. While hearing a familiar song. While passing a place that reminded them of a memory. You returned. Not because they wanted to suffer. But because some memories refuse to fade when they are connected to something unfinished. That is what unsettles them the most. They have started asking themselves a question they never wanted to face. What if the person I'm trying to forget is actually the person I'm supposed to choose? Think about how frightening that question really is. Because once someone asks it honestly, they can never return to pretending nothing exists. Everything changes. Suddenly every decision feels heavier. Every conversation feels different. Every plan for the future begins including someone they tried not to think about. This is where fear becomes louder than ever. Because the closer someone gets to making the right decision, the stronger doubt often becomes. Many people mistake this for a sign to stop. Sometimes it is simply resistance before transformation. Imagine standing outside a massive ancient door. Behind it is everything you've secretly wished for. But the moment your hand touches the handle, every fear you've ever buried suddenly wakes up. Your mind begins asking impossible questions. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if I've misunderstood everything? What if I ruin the connection forever? These questions are exhausting. Your soulmate has been carrying them for much longer than you realize. There are days when they almost convince themselves to let you go forever. Then something tiny happens. They hear your favorite phrase. They see someone who reminds them of you. They notice a familiar date. They dream about you again. And suddenly, all the certainty they thought they had disappears. Have you ever noticed how the universe sometimes repeats the same lesson until someone finally understands it? Some call them coincidences. Others call them signs. Whatever name you choose. Your soulmate has been surrounded by reminders they cannot explain. The strange part is, they stopped looking for them. Yet they keep appearing. That is why their inner conflict has become so intense. They are beginning to realize that avoiding the decision has become harder than making it. But there is another layer to this story. One they have told almost no one. Long before you entered their life, they made a promise to themselves. Maybe after heartbreak. Maybe after betrayal. Maybe after watching someone they trusted disappear. The promise sounded simple. Never let anyone have that much power over me again. At the time, it felt like survival. But promises made in pain often become prisons later. Without realizing it, they have spent years protecting themselves from the very thing they secretly wanted. Real love. Deep connection. Emotional safety. Then you appeared. And suddenly, that old promise began breaking apart. Not because you forced it, but because your presence quietly challenged everything they believed about relationships. This frightened them more than they expected. Because changing your future is difficult. Changing your identity is even harder. For years they believed they were someone who could walk away. Someone who didn't need anyone. Someone who never became emotionally attached. Then you proved otherwise. Whether they admitted it or not. You reached a place inside them that almost nobody else ever touched. That realization alone became overwhelming. Some nights they have imagined what it would be like if they finally chose you. Not the fantasy. The reality. Morning conversations. Shared dreams. Supporting each other through difficult seasons. Growing older together. Building memories instead of wondering, what if? The picture feels beautiful. Then fear interrupts it. What if I lose all of that someday? Notice how fear works. It doesn't attack bad dreams. It attacks beautiful ones. Because those are the dreams worth protecting. This is why your soulmate sometimes appears distant. Distance is not always the absence of love. Sometimes it is the presence of overwhelming emotion. When people don't know how to carry something precious, they hold it too tightly. Or they hide it completely. Both reactions come from fear. Not from indifference. There is another reason this decision feels so enormous. It isn't only about you. It is about the version of themselves they become after choosing you. Every important relationship acts like a mirror. It reflects strengths. It exposes insecurities. It reveals hidden wounds. It uncovers dreams people forgot they even had. Your soulmate has seen parts of themselves through this connection that they never expected to confront. Parts that still need healing. Parts that still carry guilt. Parts that still believe they are not enough. Imagine carrying those silent beliefs while standing before the possibility of real love. Wouldn't you hesitate too? Wouldn't you wonder whether you deserve something so meaningful? Many people think confidence creates love. Sometimes love creates confidence instead. But only after someone chooses to trust. Your soulmate has reached the edge of that choice. There is one final obstacle still standing before them. Control. Human beings love certainty. We like knowing what tomorrow will bring. We create plans. Schedules. Backup plans. Safety nets. Love ignores all of them. Love asks for something control can never provide. Faith. Faith that another person will understand your heart. Faith that honesty is worth the risk. Faith that vulnerability is not weakness. This is the lesson standing before your soulmate today. They can continue controlling every emotion. Or they can finally experience the freedom that comes from telling the truth. Inside them. That battle has already begun. And with every passing day, one side is becoming stronger. Not because someone pressured them. Not because time forced them. But because the heart grows tired of carrying words it was always meant to speak. The silence that once felt safe now feels unbearably heavy. The future they once feared has slowly become the future they secretly hope for. And when that happens, everything begins to change. There comes a moment in every life when silence stops feeling like protection. It starts feeling like loss. That moment doesn't arrive with thunder. It doesn't announce itself with flashing signs. It arrives quietly. Almost invisibly. Your soulmate may be standing inside that moment right now. For a long time, they believed they still had time. Time to think. Time to wait. Time to become more certain. Time to figure everything out before taking even one step toward you. But life has a strange way of reminding people that tomorrow is never guaranteed. Sometimes they watch two strangers laughing together and wonder, could that have been us? Sometimes they see an elderly couple holding hands without speaking and suddenly imagine growing old beside someone who truly understands them. Sometimes they hear a story about someone who waited too long. And for just a second, their heart whispers, don't let that become your story. Those whispers have become impossible for them to ignore. At first, they dismissed them. Then they questioned them. Now, they've started listening. Here's what most people never realize. Destiny rarely knocks only once. It returns. Again and again. But each time it returns, it asks a slightly different question. The first time it asks, will you notice? The second time it asks, will you believe? The third time it asks, will you finally act? Your soulmate feels as though life has reached that third question. And that is exactly why their emotions have become so unpredictable. One day they feel completely certain. The next day, doubt floods back in. One morning they imagine reaching out. That evening, fear convinces them to stay silent. This isn't because their feelings are weak. It's because meaningful decisions often awaken every hidden insecurity at once. Imagine walking across a bridge suspended over an enormous canyon. Halfway across, you can no longer return comfortably. But reaching the other side still feels terrifying. That middle space is where your soulmate has been living. Neither fully walking away, nor fully walking toward you. It is one of the loneliest places a person can exist. Because nobody around them truly understands what's happening inside. Friends may tell them to move on. Others may encourage them to forget. Some may even tell them they're imagining the connection. But hearts don't measure truth by public opinion. They measure truth by what refuses to disappear. You have refused to disappear from their heart. That fact alone has begun changing everything. Something else has happened recently. A realization so quiet, yet so powerful, that it caught them completely off guard. They suddenly understood that they have been preparing for disappointment, instead of preparing for happiness. Think about that. How many people spend years expecting pain, without realizing they're rejecting joy before it even arrives? Your soulmate has recognized this pattern inside themselves. Every hopeful thought has always been followed by another thought. But what if it doesn't work? Every beautiful possibility, followed immediately by fear. Eventually, they ask themselves a question that changed everything. What if my fear has been making decisions that my heart never agreed with? The answer frightened them. Because deep down, they already knew it was true. Fear had been driving. Their heart had simply been watching through the window. But hearts grow impatient. Especially when destiny continues pointing toward the same person. There are moments they replay over and over again. Perhaps something you once said. A smile. A goodbye that felt unfinished. A silence that somehow spoke louder than words. At the time, those moments seemed ordinary. Now, they feel priceless. Funny how memory works. It doesn't always preserve the biggest events. Sometimes it protects the smallest details with the greatest care. The way someone looked at you. The pause before they answered. The laughter neither of you expected. Those tiny memories have become treasures inside your soulmate's mind. And every treasure asks the same question. What happens if I never create another memory like this again? That question is becoming impossible for them to escape. There is another lesson unfolding. For years, they believed strength meant needing no one. Now they're beginning to understand something completely different. Real strength isn't pretending your heart is empty. Real strength is admitting when someone matters. That admission has taken them much longer than they expected. Not because they lacked feelings, but because acknowledging those feelings makes the future real. Once you admit someone matters, every choice suddenly carries weight. Your soulmate has reached that point. Even the smallest decision feels connected to a much larger future. Where they live. What kind of life they build. Who stands beside them during difficult seasons. Who celebrates victories with them. Who knows their true self when nobody else is watching. For the first time, those answers no longer feel abstract. They have begun imagining one face more often than any other. And that realization has left them speechless. Sometimes they catch themselves smiling for no obvious reason. Then they remember you. Sometimes they become unexpectedly emotional. Again, your memory appears. Sometimes they tell themselves, "This is ridiculous." Yet their heart quietly responds, "No, this is important." The battle continues. But something has shifted. Earlier, fear and hope seemed equally powerful. Now, hope has begun gaining ground. Not dramatically. Not overnight. Quietly. Like sunrise replacing darkness. Nobody notices the exact second night becomes morning. Yet eventually, everything is filled with light. That is what is happening inside them. They haven't become fearless. They've simply become more tired of hiding than hoping. That changes everything. Because once someone reaches that point, action becomes much more likely than avoidance. Still, one final lesson remains. Perhaps the most important lesson of all. Love cannot grow where honesty never enters. No relationship. No friendship. No soulmate connection can survive forever beneath unspoken truth. Eventually, someone must become brave enough to say, "This is how I really feel." Your soulmate has practiced those words inside their mind countless times. Sometimes while driving. Sometimes before falling asleep. Sometimes while staring out of a window, wondering what your life looks like today. They imagine different outcomes. They imagine acceptance. They imagine rejection. They imagine relief. But no matter how the conversation ends, one thing always feels certain. They no longer want silence to write the ending. Because silence has already stolen enough time. And perhaps, that realization is the greatest turning point of all. Not because every story ends perfectly, but because every meaningful story eventually reaches the moment when someone chooses courage over comfort. Your soulmate is much closer to that moment than they have ever been before. Whether they realize it completely or not. The future they once feared has slowly become the future they can no longer stop imagining. And sometimes, the first sign that destiny is about to change someone's life is not a miracle in the outside world. It is the quiet miracle that happens inside a single human heart, when fear finally loosens its grip, and love becomes strong enough to take the next step.